The plot to push Suella Braverman out of government continues as Jeremy Hunt and his team have been accused of making things difficult for the Home Secretary, and Ben Wallace is already thinking about his post-government career, potentially as the Chief of NATO. Okay, I understand. Today has been mostly about the Conservative government, the so-called Conservative government. To be fair, the last couple of days we focused way too much on the SNP and the Welsh government and the Labour Party, so it's good to have some sort of balance. I know that the Tory loyalists will be quite upset that I'm going to criticise their government, but it doesn't matter. We will criticise left, right and centre if they are hypocrites or idiotic. Now, speaking of idiots, let's talk about Jeremy Hunt and the government, because over the last few days we've been talking a lot about, we've been giving you guys reports on the Suella Braverman seeing all these new obstacles on her way, whether it's obviously the civil servants or Downing Street or some of the staff from the government in general briefing the papers and the media negatively against her. And now we have actual government ministers and MPs going on TV and criticising Suella Braverman. And Suella, on her own, trying to sort out the border control and the illegal migration crisis. Now there's a battle between her and Jeremy Hunt, because Hunt believes in more migration. He's in favour of more economic migration, which will increase net migration overall every year in this country. Suella Braverman is not just against illegal migration, but she's also against the mass migration, legally and illegally. Something that even Priti Patel wasn't really concerned about. She wasn't really talking about any of that at that time. So, what's going on? We have Jeremy Hunt, who's come out to say that immigration controls would be eased further to plug labour shortages. So, short term, another plaster. They found another plaster to bring in more economic migrants to sort out the GDP, to have economic growth. And then they always say, it's okay, long term, that's tomorrow's problem. We're going to train up our people. But it never actually happens. For example, people like Hunt believe that this is a sensible and pragmatic approach. I am sick and tired of these statists in government and in the political system in general. Since the days of Tony Blair and David Cameron, they have their own ideology, which is statism, big government. And then they sell it as pragmatic and practical governance. It's got nothing to do with being pragmatic or practical. This is their ideology. They go out there and they say, we are not ideological. We actually don't like ideologies. Let's be more pragmatic. But then they have their own ideology, which is more big government. They continue doing the same method over and over again, and it doesn't work. So this is the biggest issue that we're currently facing when it comes to Suella Braverman. She decided to hit back. She fired a warning shot to cabinet colleagues, blocking her proposals this week by saying that the government must reduce immigration by the next election, or Britain would risk forgetting how to do things for ourselves. So that was a speech that she made at the National Conservatism Conference, and we reported that on the day. Again, another reminder of how things are going when it comes to migration. Net migration and mass migration in general is now mostly non-EU citizens. Since the Brexit vote in 2016, a lot of European citizens freaked out for no reason and they left Britain. But then we've had all the other non-EU people coming in. By the way, we have actual illegal migration, so on small boats, that's one group. But then we also have actual legal economic migrants and foreign students and everybody who comes here, relatives and family members, everyone's coming here. That's why the net migration numbers are going up. It's not just because of the small boats in Dover. All right. Michael Gove, also the Levelling Up Secretary of State, has come out to say, oh God, so he has not heard anyone express anything other than support for the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. The guy just comes out and says things without realizing that we know the opposite. That's true. So he's coming to say there doesn't seem to be any fight. Everybody loves everybody in the cabinet. I have not heard anyone saying anything bad about colleagues. I haven't heard any dissent from any of the cabinet ministers about the need to bring migration down and the need to deal with illegal migration. He was talking to the BBC about this. He said, we all worry about the number, but we all agreed that the number needs to come down, that we need to exercise a greater degree of control. How many years do you guys have to use the word control until you actually use control? We can't just keep going to the next election, I mean, the same empty promises saying we will sort out the border control. And then the next 4 years, chaos happens. To be fair, there are a number of cabinet members and MPs who are already thinking about their post-government career. Now, this is about Ben Wallace, the defense secretary, who's become quite famous now because of the clashes in Ukraine. Now, Ben Wallace is quite keen when it comes to the job of NATO, the head of NATO, and he's going to be recommended by the rest of the establishment because he will be a credible face and credible voice for the whole of the organization. To be fair, I get it. The guy is built to do something like that. But it's probably best not to brief the papers right now that you're already thinking about your post-government job. Also, it doesn't really help the narrative that the elites would go with the elitist jobs. Of course, Ben Wallace is going to go for a NATO job. So cliche, absolute cliche. Anyway, he said that I've always said that it will be a good job, the head of NATO. But I'm also loving the job I do now. I mean, to be Defence Secretary of the British government at a time of reform and investment is brilliant. I mean, I'm waiting for those reforms and investments, Ben Wallace, but okay. The guy's done a good job generally. But he's also been part of the same cabal who've made so much mess and waste when it comes to the government contracts, the MOD contracts and everything else. I'm not really sure. Cutting frontline services and frontline when it comes to the armed forces, at the same time getting them to obviously replace the public workers who've gone on strike during Christmas or Easter time, and then at the same time saying, well, we need to do more. It's slightly confusing. Not really sure what the strategy is when it comes to the Ministry of Defense at this point. We focus way too much on Ukraine rather than our own country. Anyway, that's the main thing. But now there's also a lot of other issues. When Jeremy Hunt says that he wants to increase migration, and when Michael Gove comes out to say, I don't know if there's any fight going on, everybody loves everybody, you can see there's a massive problem with the new industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, which is also about AI. Now, this is about what's going on with robots and AI bots and machinery, which has always been part of the evolution of the industry over the last couple of centuries. We get it. But what BT is doing as a telecoms company is slightly disgusting. So this story is about BT cutting 55,000 jobs, sacking 55,000 people and replacing thousands with AI, artificial intelligence, in a major shakeup. So whether you're a conservative or liberal or whatever centrist is or leftist or whatever, we know that technology is coming and it improves and it's going to replace a lot of things. The problem we have is that the reason people get frustrated and paranoid is simply because there is no grace period. There is no transitional period. You knew these sort of things are coming. You knew machinery and AI will improve over the last few years. Why, as a company, BT did not prepare this slowly to transition, to make sure people know something is coming within the next 5 years? We can prepare something so you can either move to new jobs, new departments within their BT, or give them a warning so within the next 5 years they could train themselves up to do a different job, to leave the company over time. You cannot do this every single time. We had a huge wave of technological evolution. We completely have companies, certain corporations, shutting things down immediately without any heads up. That's why people are being skeptical about these changes, about AI taking over. There's a whole different question and debate to have about the threat of AI. That's a whole different point. This is simply about jobs. Without giving a warning to people, you are kicking people out. The chief executive of BT, Philip Jansen, said, whenever you get new technologies, you can get big changes. We are multi-channel, we are online, we have 450 stores, and that's not changing at all. There are plenty of opportunities for our customers to deal with BT, to deal with people at BT, plenty of people to speak to. Yeah, but is it going to be those people, or is it going to be the people who are already there in those jobs? That's the problem. Are you going to be given opportunities for the people who are firing to do those jobs? If it's true, then why are you making them redundant? That's the problem. Yes, you still have their different departments and different stores, and there are people doing those jobs, fine. But the ones who you are getting rid of, Did you give them the opportunity to also do the similar jobs or not? Or at least did you give them heads up 2-3 years ago that this could happen? This is why people hate corporatism at this point. Right, so BT, so much chaos has happened over the last year or so for BT. They reported a 12% drop in profits of £1.7 billion for the year to April. Shares have also dropped by more than 7%. Shares fell 1.5% to 148.10p on Wednesday, but stock is up 32% so far this year. So ups and downs for the company, and they think that if they make the general public more angry, then everything's going to be fine. It's important to talk about these things, and we will continue to expose establishment, whether it's corporatism or big government, statism or socialism, whatever it is. I'm against collectivism, regardless of what branding. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to get everybody you know to subscribe. We're getting close to 300,000 subscribers. If we could hit 300k by this summer, early summer, so July, then we can actually throw a big party and invite you guys and have fun together. So if you know anybody, some family members or neighbors or friends, send them the link, get them to subscribe, and help us grow the movement that is independent media. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.